How's it going, everybody? ChaosKey4013 here with a bit of a different video today. And wouldn't you know it, I'm finally doing a video talking about RWBY after having the show's lead appearing in my intros and outros for so long. But yes, I am in fact a huge fan of Rooster Teeth's hit web series, having watched the show from the first episode since around the time Volume 2 had started, and I've loved the show since. And with Volume 5 having finished a while ago, today I want to talk about something that's been a bit of a problem in the more recent RWBY volumes. Something that really needs to be addressed in the future of the series. Something that I really want to see fleshed out but has been neglected by the writers for the past 2 volumes as of Volume 5. And it pains me to talk about this particular topic considering it involves my favorite character in the whole show, who just so happens to be RWBY's main protagonist. I am of course talking about Ruby Rose and the problem with her. There has been a lot of setup to expand on RWBY as a character, but the execution has been either non-existent or it hasn't exactly been the greatest. She's the main protagonist of the show, and yet in recent volumes, the writers haven't given her much to prove she deserves that title. At least not yet anyway. Before we begin, I just want to say there will be spoilers for RWBY up to Volume 5 in the video. So if you haven't finished Volume 5, I'd recommend doing so before proceeding. Anyway, on with the video. Let's begin by talking about what we've been given in regards to RWBY as a character. RWBY is a young girl who strives to become a huntress. That's a pretty big and ambitious goal for a teenage girl such as herself, so why go for this kind of goal? Being a huntress isn't exactly the most pleasant of professions, you know. Well, it's simple really. She wants to help people in need and protect those she cares for, just like the heroes in fairy tales. It sounds cheesy, but don't let that throw you off guard. She just might be able to pull it off, as she proves to be a competent fighter with exceptional adaptability and strategic prowess, as well as being quick to recognize a threat and act. It's no wonder Osmond gave the role of leader of Team RWBY to her. Okay, so that's her goal, motivations, and fighting capabilities, but what about her personality? RWBY is very upbeat, cheerful, and positive, but is socially awkward. This social awkwardness of hers makes it hard for her to make friends. But for the friends she has made, RWBY definitely knows how to make very strong bonds with them, and inspire them even in the darkest of times, staying positive even when the situation is grim. And to me, I believe this is where she shines. I mean, if you're gonna be the leader, you need to set a good example to others. And what better way to do that than by building motivation, confidence, and trust in those that follow you? RWBY does just that. And nowhere is this displayed the strongest than her dynamic with her team. Sure, it was shaky at the beginning, but over time, RWBY took her role as leader seriously, and managed to build a team on trust and perseverance, no matter the danger. Of course, RWBY isn't perfect. She can be a bit reckless at times, her social awkwardness is, again, awkward, and there are other factors we'll touch upon soon. But in spite of all that, she's willing to be that inspiring light in others in a dark world, and strives to create an even better one. That's why RWBY fights. That's why RWBY is who she is. That is why RWBY is my favorite character in the show. But it wasn't until the end of Volume 3 where we learned that there was more to Ruby Rose than even Ruby Rose herself knew. She possesses the Silver Eyes. It is a rare trait that signifies an individual who is destined to live the life of a warrior, and comes packing some incredible power to boot. Power strong enough to wound even an individual with the power of a maiden. Sure, Crow didn't go into too much detail on the Silver Eyes, but being given brief knowledge about them and knowing they affected RWBY was enough at the time. It showed that RWBY was an even more important character to the narrative than ever before, which is good considering she's the main protagonist. Needless to say, this was the point in the story that should have been the turning point, the next chapter in RWBY's character. But we don't get that. Instead, for the next 2 volumes, all of this great potential is pushed aside in favor of developing other characters, which I feel in turn deprives RWBY of achieving major accomplishments. Now, I'm not saying developing the other characters was a bad thing. In fact, it was very good considering some of the characters in question, Rin. But when developing certain characters comes at the expense of the development of other characters, especially the main protagonist, that's a problem. It doesn't prove that the main protagonist is worthy of being the main protagonist. And unfortunately, that's the state Ruby Rose is currently in. So, how can this be fixed? Well, for starters, the story needs to explain this. What the heck even are the Silver Eyes? Because of the lack of focus on Ruby Rose, we don't get more insight on the Silver Eyes. What do they mean in regards to the world of Remnant? Are the Silver Eyes powers the same for everyone who has them, or not? Do they activate in the same way for everyone who has them? These are all questions and then some that the audience has been wondering since the end of Volume 3. Volume 5 has concluded, and we still haven't gotten any answers. And because of this, the Silver Eyes in its current state are just a deus ex machina. I'm not saying the writers should give away everything about the Silver Eyes to us all at once, but what needs to happen is this. The secrets behind the Silver Eyes should be gradually introduced to expand on the lore of the world of Remnant, as well as be applied to RWBY's character in later volumes. Which leads to my next point of fixing, addressing RWBY's character growth and development. So far, as of the beginning of Volume 4 onward, RWBY hasn't really had anything to grow from. I mean, there was her training to be better at hand-to-hand combat in Volume 5, but not much came from it. Which is a shame, since it's been established that, when it comes to hand-to-hand, RWBY, well, sucks at it. That could have been at least something for her to grow from, but again, it was shoved aside for the growth of others. I'm sorry for saying that again, but it warrants the emphasis. Just look at the other characters in the show. Weiss takes matters into her own hands and escapes from her home to go defend Haven. Blake manages to rally up the Faunus and Menagerie to stand up against Adam and the White Fang to protect Haven. Yang. Okay, she gets a little angsty, but she mans up after the fall of Beacon, confronts her mom, and shows her up. Jean copes with the loss of Pyrrha, continues to train, and finally unlocks his semblance. Rin and Nora, we learn about their backstory, and Rin overcomes his past. Ilya struggles to find out what's right, learns that what the White Fang wants isn't what she wants, and ultimately defects from and stands against them. RWBY. She has that talk with Oscar in Volume 5. That's it. When nearly every major character in RWBY, but the main protagonist, has had something out of the ordinary over the course of Volumes 4 and 5 to advance their character, you know there's something wrong. I'm not saying shift all of the focus to RWBY, I mean, we don't want her to become too perfect, but rather balance the character growth so that everyone can develop. One thing that I see that is in plain sight for the writers to use to expand on RWBY's character is, believe it or not, how her Silver Eyes have been activated. Yep, we're delving into theory for this one. In Volume 3, when RWBY reached the top of the tower only to see Cinder kill Pyrrha, RWBY freaked out, and her Silver Eyes activated. In Volume 5, when Jean started charging at Cinder, RWBY was reminded of what Cinder did at the fall of Beacon, which then her Silver Eyes started to activate again. All of these occurrences, I believe, stem from one thing: RWBY's fear of not being able to protect all that she cares for, and the forces of darkness succeeding in destroying all of that, and more. This is RWBY's breaking point, and I believe it's this breaking point that unleashes the power of her Silver Eyes. This is the perfect opportunity for RWBY's character. It is a great chance to exploit her weakness and allow her to grow and develop from it. Sadly, someone might need to die for this to happen, particularly, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, Crow, since it's someone who isn't from Team RWBY or Juniper that she is extremely close to. This is also a good opportunity for RWBY to learn how to awaken and control her Silver Eyes. Learning how to awaken and control her Silver Eyes at will might be a difficult task for RWBY, to the point of stressing out or even giving up. But then have her be reminded in some way, maybe a pep talk with Ozpin or some dramatic occurrence, of what's at stake. Because as far as I can tell, RWBY might be the best thing the heroes have to combat Salem simply because she has the Silver Eyes. My last point is this: give her more to do than just stand or sit around all day, or only be there to fight the smaller fights while others do the bigger tasks in her place. I'm not saying the other major characters shouldn't take part in bigger tasks, but like I said, balance it. Give the main protagonist something grand to accomplish, something that establishes her status as the main protagonist of RWBY. I mean, RWBY is the leader of Team RWBY and the lead character of the show after all, so have her, well, lead. I personally don't find RWBY to be a bad character unlike what others might say, but that being said, she needs work put into her. She has such great potential to be one of the best leading characters I've ever seen in media, but leading is a tough job. While she may have leading a team down, leading a show is gonna take some effort. It's all there for you, RWBY, so prove you're up for the task. This is Chaos Key 4013. See you all next time.